Welcome to Perennia Food and Agriculture's Food Safety 5x5 series. This session is on risk assessment. A food safety risk assessment should be used when there's a concern that a current or new process, ingredient, procedure, or environmental factor could introduce a food safety risk to a customer or consumer. A food safety risk assessment is the overall documented process of identifying the hazard, defining the risk, determining what control measures are currently in place, evaluating the risk, and explaining how the risk will be managed going forward. Performing a risk assessment demonstrates your awareness of a potential food safety risk and that measures were taken to define it, evaluate it, manage it, and validate it. Grab your cross-functional team and let's get started. The first step is identifying the risk. Identify the type of hazard that could impact food safety or quality for your consumers. Is the risk biological, chemical, or physical in nature? Next, what is the impact of the hazard for your consumers or further processors? How would this affect them? After you've become aware of and identify the risk, you need to define the risk associated with it. Describe the standard you're risk assessing, not meeting, or not fully meeting, and evaluate the risk associated with the preventive controls and CCPs, if applicable, pertaining to the risk. For example, when risk assessing the frequency of your sanitation program, you need to consider whether the equipment or area is, for example, food contact, high risk, or a dry storage area, lower risk, in which case you would assign high risk areas to have a daily sanitation frequency and lower risk areas a weekly or monthly frequency, depending on your justification. List out all of the potential hazards associated with the standard you're risk assessing, not meeting, or not fully meeting that are associated with your preventive controls and CCPs, if applicable. Then list all of the control measures you currently have in place to minimize or eliminate the risk. Next, you need to evaluate the risk. Use a defined risk analysis matrix which considers the frequency in which the hazard could occur and the severity of the consequences if the hazard were to occur. There are many risk matrices you can choose to work with. Here, the frequency estimates if the hazard could be considered a common occurrence, known to occur, could occur, not expected to occur, or if it's practically impossible that it will occur. How likely is it that it will occur? And the severity of the consequence ranges from whether the impact could be a critical loss, the loss of a client, or even a fatality. Could it result in a rejected lot or a serious illness? Could the impact be major in that you could receive a warning from a client or find yourself in a recall situation? Could it have a low impact where the product could be discounted or you receive complaints? Is it possible there would be no impact or the impact would be insignificant to your operation? The risk rating is calculated when you multiply the frequency, or likelihood, by the severity or consequences. This matrix calculates a high risk to be between 1 and 10 and a low risk to be between 11 and 25. You must also justify why the risk rating was chosen by taking into consideration why you chose the frequency and consequence ratings that you did. You can find an example of this defined risk analysis matrix on our website. You can use it as is, or it can be used as a reference in creating your own. Go to www.perennia.ca, select Quality and Food Safety Resources, Perennia Publications and Fact Sheets, and then you'll see the fact sheet How to Complete an Effective Risk Assessment. Using the risk analysis matrix, determine how to manage the risk based on the outcome of working through your risk analysis matrix. If the food safety risk is low, this may or may not require control measures to be put in place, depending on their significance. If the food safety risk is high, this requires control measures to be put in place. Take into consideration the control measures you currently have in place and list any additional control measures that will be implemented to manage the risk. Ensure you document all of the risk assessment steps and information on a record. Once your risk assessment is complete, have your cross-functional team sign off on it and date it. But you're not finished just yet. The last step is to bring your cross-functional team together to schedule and complete a final validation to ensure that your control measures are properly implemented and effective. Document the validation on a validation record or in a section at the end of your documented risk assessment. If during your final validation you find that improvements need to be made or corrective and preventive actions need to be taken, Ensure these are documented on a corrective and preventive action report and followed up on. Now that you're more familiar with the risk assessment process, you'll be able to complete an effective risk assessment and create a document that can be referenced when communicating and working through food safety risks, problem solving, making decisions on a course of action, and bringing attention to and clarifying food safety risks. We hope by checking out our Food Safety 5x5 series, you learn something new or validated what you already know. For more information, visit the Quality and Food Safety section of our website. Best of luck on your quality and food safety journey.